What's up, everybody? Thanks for checking in. TDR's Trade Black podcast on a Monday, presented by Flowhub. Good to have you on. I'm your host, Shad Dales. AB is back. Going to have him on in just a moment, as well as Michael Bronstein up a little bit later to talk about this week's Farm Bill and how it will be renegotiated, or not renegotiated. Yes, it is renegotiated, but hemp is going to be redefined. That's something that we're watching very closely. We'll ask Michael what we can anticipate and expect in some of the conversations that will go on pertaining to that Farm Bill. All eyes on that. Yes, we were hoping Boris Jordan would be on today. He's going to come on later this week, probably Wednesday or Thursday. He is sick here today, but yeah, a lot of good questions. We're going to have him on later this week. So don't be alarmed. We had to make a few changes here in the last couple of hours, plus some stuff involving Supreme Court. Tilray buying some pubs in the UK. What's up with that? I actually had a conversation with some of the people over there, so I'll give you a better understanding as to why they made this purchase and why it all makes sense. And more importantly, yes, I know we still continue to wait on a rescheduling announcement. In case you want to know, Doug Cass is still buying. So take that for what you will. So something should be happening. I don't know when the exact date or time it's going to be, but we keep hearing rumors that something should come down. So let's get into it here on a Monday. Trade to Black, presented by Flowhub. Good to see you, my friend. How was the House of Mouse? How was that?
Great. It was fantastic. I had a 1-year-old just running around the park the entire time.
Was it busy?
Not really.
Really?
It was great. I mean, you get the lightning passes, you basically skip the line, and as long as you pay for everything, I mean, Disney takes care of you now. It was a good vacation. It was fun. It's a once-a-year thing, though. I've got friends that go like every quarter with their kids. I'm not going back there until Cammy's 2.
They go every quarter?
Yeah.
What's the cost to get in there now? And you pay for everything. Are you looking at like $1,000
for the trip?
Well, for the trip, it's got to be a lot more than $1,000. If you went in there for a day,
it's not $1,000 a person.
No.
I think a Florida resident 3-day pass, I think, was like $300.
So where'd you get? Did you guys just you stayed there for what, 2-3 days, or just go out for the day?
Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Came home yesterday.
Saturday. What? Yeah. No Shadlock? Hey, look, like I keep saying, nothing's changed from last week, but I know a lot of you were hoping something was going to get announced last week.
Yeah,
but
Cammy got a good taste of the Disney theme park. She got to meet the mouse. So
nice.
It was all good.
A lot of stuff's taking place. Crazy times in this world. As we saw the stuff going on in the Middle East right now, I think a lot of people are a little concerned as to, like, does this rescheduling get put on the back burner? And can the U.S. government, meaning the DOJ, legally file something into register when there's conflict going on in the Middle East? I did look into that. Yes, there were some people on Twitter that were, I don't know if they were being sarcastic or not, but yes, they can 100% still do that. So I'll have a video on that tomorrow morning explaining all that stuff. But stuff's
the events are not correlated at all. And yeah, Fred, the events are not correlated. I mean, there's a lot of shit going on in the world. The broad market could crash. I mean, the Strait of Hormuz has been closed down via Iran, so that supplies most of the globe with energy. Inflation could occur. Prices could go up. The dollar rallied. Metals went down. But as far as cannabis getting rescheduled, I don't think the war in Iran has any bearing on it.
Yeah.
Bondi's going to do what Bondi's going to do. And I mean, we saw, and we're going to get into it, the Supreme Court pretty much was on the side of cannabis users should be allowed to own firearms. There is no reason why you could define a cannabis user as someone that, let's say, is mentally incapacitated. It's unconstitutional. And they actually said that it is completely contradictory of the administration rescheduling cannabis.
Which, how do you take that? I don't know. It's ridiculous, I think.
It was good. They were on our side. I mean, the Supreme Court, if I had to guess.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, if the Supreme, I don't want to get ahead of our skis, but I'd have to assume that they're probably going to rule in the favor of people that use cannabis are allowed and should not be barred from owning firearms.
Yeah.
And the drunkard versus drunk thing was crazy. The definition of that, I think it used to be 8 shots of whiskey is considered drunkard versus drunk. I mean, you give me 8 shots of whiskey and I'll be in a strange place. Yeah. I'll be pretty fucked up.
You'll be angry, ready to fight.
Not angry, but I'll be relatively drunk.
Okay, so when we look at this, if cannabis moves to a Schedule 3, That means, obviously, as we know, the federal government officially recognized it as medical use. Now, how does that make sense, to still treat
Well,
legal
the
cannabis?
government, because the HHS is a government agency, has already said that cannabis has medical use.
You're right.
So that hurdle's already been crossed.
Why is the Trump DOJ still defending that ban then? I don't get it. It's so confusing. Like, at one minute you're going to reschedule cannabis, and yet you're defending a ban.
So my short time with understanding the intricacies of the government, there's institutional people that are there that are career people. Those people don't change their views from administration to administration. Those people have very ingrained institutional views, especially as it relates to drugs.
Yeah.
It does not surprise me in the least bit that there are people in the DOJ that don't agree with rescheduling, that don't agree with cannabis, and then do agree that it is not unconstitutional to bar medical marijuana card holders and cannabis consumers from owning firearms.
Fair enough.
They're more than in the right to have that view. It's a very antiquated view, and it's not a view that the majority of this country agrees with, but there are definitely people in the DOJ that do not like what is going on.
Mhm.
That's for a fact.
Confusing. It is, for sure. But
Very
yeah,
much so. But we saw the pragmatism of the Supreme Court justices today around the issue. If they ruled against it, I would be shocked.
yeah,
Yeah.
promising. Today's podcast, as we know, is presented by our good friends over at Flowhub. That's exactly why we do what we do, because they do what they do. And I kind of misread that first opening, but if you're a serious cannabis operator and you already know margins are tight, compliance is complex, execution matters. That's exactly why so many leading dispensaries across the country run on Flowhub. It gives you real-time inventory visibility, built-in compliance reporting, integrated payments, powerful analytics, all in one streamlined platform. So there's no patchwork systems, no manual workarounds. So whether you're scaling from one location to 5 or you're a multi-state operator, Flowhub helps you move faster, stay compliant, Anthony, and protect your bottom line. So if you're ready to operate smarter and build a more efficient retail operation, learn more and book a demo at flowhub.com. I think we're going to have some stats. Maybe Kyle will be on later this week.
David's funny. Dombrowski in 3, 2, 1. He's definitely lurking around here somewhere. By the way, I don't know if anybody was watching the tape, but there were some big spoofing bids in the last 10 minutes on MSOX. There were like 500,000 or 600,000 share blocks being offered at $2.47, $2.47 share price. It was quite funny to see. Just par for the course with this cannabis capital markets.
Do you find it's picked up even more so? Like when you look at MSOS and MSOX, like in the last month, 2 months, like it just seems like all these option calls every single Friday, everything is so predictable. It's like, I don't even know how to put it into words because I don't understand it. But all I know is that somebody is doing something, and it's frustrating every single day because,
I mean, you could move these markets. I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but you could move these markets with very little capital.
yeah,
I'm assuming there's probably institutions in Canada that are spoofing some of the share prices on the ETFs and on the underlyings. It's just it's a function of the game right now. I mean, there's nothing we can do to stop it. Citadel and Jane Street are probably in there as well.
yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, until this industry gets re-rated and until we get the catalysts that are going to come, it's just going to happen. I mean, it's buy your stock that you think is at a good price, dollar cost average if you can, and I mean, just kind of keep your eye on the prize. If your conviction doesn't waver and you think that this is going to materialize and the industry has staying power in the future, then just kind of shut up and let it take its course.
Yeah, I hear you.
If you want to get caught in the day-to-day stuff and yell at myself and Doug Cass for just saying things that are public information that we're just relaying, I mean, go right ahead. Don't get over levered and don't lose money that you can't lose. But I mean, people just seem like they're completely frustrated, and it's a function of just not being able to deal with the time passing between the executive order and getting something out from the DOJ.
Yeah. This tape is just getting a little frustrating. I won't lie. When I look at MSOS,
the prices don't matter. The prices in the stocks do not matter. I'm sure it matters on a P&L standpoint if you're looking at your portfolio and watching it go down, watching them go down day after day, but if you take the emotion out of it, you understand what you own, and you understand where the industry is going, the daily price action shouldn't mean a goddamn thing. Getting mad at people that are commenting on the industry because of the daily price action is completely just insane to me. You just saw Curaleaf, GTI, and Trulieve report. If you can do back of the napkin math and from a valuation standpoint, understand the amount of free cash flow that those companies just generated, the top line that they generated, and what they look like on a go-forward basis if they get re-rated from a multiple standpoint, hold the stock and just go along for the ride.
Yeah.
But looking at it day to day and just getting pissed off and just slandering people and being emotional is just ridiculous.
Ooh, Arns. A little trigger happy there.
Yeah, I don't know. That was
SFS Restore South Florida. He's gone.
That was real quick.
Just wrote blah, 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 blah. I was going to actually write that. But yeah, you're right. I think of a lot of people when you look at the latest earnings, they're, margins were somewhat healthy for sure.
Truly, Kim's margin. I think she's operating still at a 60% gross margin.
Yeah.
I mean, buy companies that are doing well.
You have
companies that you're not. I mean, we are out of the phase of buying cannabis stocks that you think are going to rip on a multiple basis that are on the brink of CCAA and going into receivership. Like, if you want to gamble on those, go ahead and gamble on those. But if you get burnt, you got nobody to blame but yourself.
Johnny writes, only Green Thumb has made a profit. Scary for the other companies. I wouldn't go that far. No,
I wouldn't go that far. He's correct on a gap basis, on an earnings per share basis. Yeah, Ben and Green Thumb is the only one.
Yeah.
But you look at Boris. I think Boris has tremendous upside with his growth in the EU. I think Boris also has a very large footprint that's not going to go anywhere in the United States. He just did the largest bond offering and refi that we've seen in the space. Kim's got a fortress balance sheet. Ben's got a fortress balance sheet. I mean, you really shouldn't be, and I hate to say this, but those three companies are really where you should be putting your money.
Somebody's brought this up a few times with me now. I got to take a closer look at this, but Vexed. A lot of people talk highly of this company. I have
They're
not.
Small. They're very small. They're very small. The only smaller operator that I would say I own still is TerraSend. And that's because Jason and Ziad in the markets that are in, and I trust them as operators. And I think Jason will steward that ship
I do too.
to the right place ultimately down the road.
I do too.
But there's no reason not to own the top 3, 4 Verano when you look at what their print's going to be.
Yeah.
Potentially, and then they get the refi out of the way. Verano re-rates as well. Verano's got the most upside from a multiple basis in the sector because it just trades like a dog because they need to refi their debt and they're lagging their peers if you're putting them up there with Trulieve, GTI, and Curaleaf, and then obviously Cresco's there as well.
Glasshouse brands, yes, JBD, DA.
Glasshouse. I don't consider Glasshouse with the MSOs just because of their business model. They're not an MSO. They're a single state operator with a dominant grow operation in California, and
you can get a real
Glasshouse is a great bet on if you believe in the future
of
the cannabis industry.
It's a story like anything when it comes to an institution. They want to see how you can scale, what your runway, or should say to profitability and generating revenue. But yeah, I think Glasshouse is definitely a story that you can easily understand as to where the industry is going.
Correct.
And they are at the forefront when it definitely comes to, interstate commerce is massive.
Correct. But I think comparing them to GTI, Trulieve, and Green Thumb is apples to oranges. But they're not analogous businesses.
And then you see where the CBD program is going to go, especially when it comes to biomass. And if they are expanding in fast track, exactly, especially with greenhouses, what was it, 2 and 4 that he said last week that they fast tracked. So Glasshouse, trying to think of a few others. Yeah, to a certain point, I can understand the Irishman. I still think CGC now is enticing. Still a ways to go, but definitely a good turnaround story. But I can't say enough about some of the Canadian LPs and what they've done. We'll get into the Tilray news, getting into pubs now. This is getting.
They've been getting into pubs for a long time.
Yeah. But when I think of OGI, some of the stuff that they announced a couple of weeks ago, High Tide, they obviously have built their footprint when it comes to retail. Village Farms is, again, turnaround stories, especially since last June. But there's some real good stories. Rubicon, MTL Cannabis and the acquisition there, and then Canara Biotech. Like, there's some real good Canadian stories going on up north. But yeah, I still think the earnings season so far is off to a good start. And I think people are a little bit frustrated because, yeah, even though we're producing some great announcements, you'd think you'd see just a little bit of a turnaround here, but it continues to bleed out because we know this industry right now moves on reform and Washington news. And that's just the bottom line right now. Before we bring Michael in, there is a couple other things that we want to discuss, including Tilray, who acquired what's called BrewDog's brand. Their intellectual property, UK brewing operations, and 11 of its most profitable pubs for 33 million pounds. So here's why this matters. This is the largest craft brewer in Europe by volume, producing about 2.4 million hectoliters per year. And if you do a comparison, they're doing about 725,000 hectoliters for their portfolio in the US. So it's a big acquisition. And what I think, if I was a betting person, they probably got this for pennies on the dollar. And I don't want to say pennies on the dollars, but for a lot less valuation today than probably what this thing was supposedly going for a couple of years ago. But they've got 11 pubs. It's interesting why they went down this road. But what were your thoughts on this announcement?
Irwin bought more beer.
Yeah.
I mean, I was very, very glowingly endorsing Irwin's initial purchase of the craft brew assets in the United States on the thesis that THC beverages would scale, THC beverages would be popular, and they would be able to sell THC beverages across the United States. Irwin had those assets. We've seen a boom in THC beverages. We have not seen Tilray execute and be selling at the same velocity as some of their peers, even though they have the brands.
Yeah.
I don't want to invest in an alcohol company. I have no interest in investing in alcohol. It's a declining trend. Irwin is buying revenue. These acquisitions are accretive. I can't say that they're bad.
Are we seeing declining trend overseas though, as well, when it comes to
beer sales are down? I mean, all of the alcohol companies are very, very adamant about beer sales declining. I don't know if craft beer, if you want to go single out a couple brands that are growing, like beer sales and alcohol sales are declining globally. I think it's good if his strategy materializes and these assets from a retail, being the pubs and the craft brew shops and all that, and the distribution with the alcohol association materializes and they start to sell THC beverages through it. I'm investing in Tilray because it's a cannabis business. I'm not investing in Tilray because I want a platform craft beer company. I mean, that's just me being honest. It's not why I'm buying Tilray.
Well,
I would buy Tilray.
Will say this was an asset that they had their eyes on for quite some time, including multiple years. But one of the main reasons why they went after the pubs is basically to get consumers in and to showcase their brands off of that. So even though craft beer or beer consumption is down in Europe, I'd be curious to see what the overall size of market is still in Europe compared to, say, even North America, because the Europeans, like America, they like their beverages, but they really like their beverages over there. But even if it is down, it's still a pretty decent sized market, which I can't help but think it probably is. But to your point, it's definitely what started out.
My point is I'm buying Tilray. If I was going to buy Tilray, I'm buying Tilray because I believe it's going to be a global cannabis powerhouse.
Yeah.
That's why I'm buying Tilray.
Yeah.
Maybe everyone is building out the pipes and laying the foundation for what's going to materialize in what the world could look like. And I thoroughly don't believe that the UK are going to have cannabis beverages free flowing through bars anytime soon. So if you're investing in Tilray right now, you're investing in a craft beer platform business with a medical marijuana business in the EU and a adult use and medical marijuana business in Canada. That's that.
Yeah. Lots changed since the early days when it was formerly a FRIA, right?
A lot.
All right. that pretty much sums up Into the Wire here on a Monday. We're going to bring Michael Bronstein in just a moment, but first, a quick word from our friends over at freepouch.com. Hey, if you follow markets, trade volatile sectors like cannabis, or run a business day to day, you already know how important focus is. Headlines move fast, decisions matter, and distractions, hey, they're everywhere. And for me, if I don't stay focused, some days my days can end up like this. Oh man, I got a lot on my plate. Oh my God, I get through those emails. And I got to get that package out. Where did I leave my sunglasses? But when I pop in a free nicotine pouch, my day starts to become more focused, and it ends up like this. Hey, yeah, let's do it. Let's lock in that 67% gain. Great trade. Because listen, I don't smoke, I don't vape, I don't want anything like that in my lungs. And that's why I use Free Pouch. Free gives you control with clean nicotine delivery, ranging from 3 milligrams up to 15, depending how intense your day is. Just discreet, clean focus when you need to lock in. Check them out at freepouch.com. And right now, you can save with promo code TDR20 at checkout and save 20% on your next purchase. freepouch.com. All right, back here on a Monday, TDR's Traded Black podcast. It's now time for Insider's Edge and our friendly guest, weekly appearance with the president of the American Trade Association for Cannabis and Hemp, Michael Bronstein. Good to see you, sir, and how are things?
Good to be here. We'll see how friendly this exchange is.
Yeah. How you make it out? Like it's different times, you know, I will say right now in the space, in the world that we're living in right now, but you know, when I look at this space right now, we got a lot of people anxiously waiting to every single week. Seems like Groundhog's Day because we're, again, trying to hear something from this attorney general, and hopefully we get a final ruling relatively soon. We keep hearing that. So fingers crossed that indeed happens. But also some important stuff happening this week, too, pertains to the Farm Bill. We kind of hinted on that last week. And a number of moving things that I think will be at play. So if you're setting the stage, who's involved in these negotiations? What's at the forefront this week pertaining to obviously hemp, and how do you see this all, I guess, shaking down and playing out?
It's Farm Bill markup that is going on this week. It had been moved from last week due to the snowstorm that happened in the east. We're anticipating the markup to start tomorrow, which is for those of you tomorrow, because I don't think that live stream knows real time. All the time. Tomorrow is March 3rd. And I suspect that the provision, the subsection in the act that deals with hemp will be addressed probably the following day, just because it's one of the later chapters that's in the that's in the Farm Bill. Basically, they go through the entire thing and they do a markup of the bill. This is on the House side. So this is in the House Agriculture Committee is where they're doing this markup. So the people who are important to know are the members who are on the House Agriculture Committee. It is currently chaired by G.T. Thompson, who is the first House Agriculture chair actually from Pennsylvania in something like 150 years. And he made some comments this week on sort of where he sees hemp going on this, or at least comments around the extension language, but also released, a good full-throated endorsement of industrial hemp when they released the base text of the bill. So the way this normally works is they release the base text of the bill, and then they do the markup, and in the markup they make changes to the base text of the bill. In this particular case, we've had a lot of discussions on the Hill, and we've heard sort of what a lot of people, are thinking about right now. In the course of the last week, Chairman Thompson has said that one of the amendments that was filed by Mr. Baird is, and that's the extension language, is not germane to this process, which means that if the chairman believes that it is not germane, then it is unlikely to see a vote if it is not germane. So right now we're sort of watching and waiting to see what happens. But I do think that it's pretty significant if it's found to not be germane, because I think that there's also some political messaging there too, and some telegraphing here as well. I think that the vote count as it stands on the committee is questionable, whether there would actually be an extension on this. Remember, the vote on the Senate side was a very strong vote relative to the language that was proposed last time. And also, you've got members of the committee. I think a majority of the members of the committee, certainly now, who are going to vote with where the chairman is at on that as well. So,
who are notable names, the members of this committee? Anybody that
we
know?
There are a lot of notable names. I think Angie Craig is a notable name. She's the ranking member, and she is important because she also has championed an extension or the discussion of an extension, and is from Minnesota, and she's the minority member. So
she's championed an extension.
She has said that there should be an extension, and that she was against the language that was that the Senate had utilized as the minority chair. So the minority chair is obviously very powerful, obviously a very powerful person on the subcommittee. And she currently, right now, interestingly, is running for Senate. So the Senate seat that Senator Klobuchar, who is also the minority chair in the Senate side. Interesting that you have two Minnesota folks that are the minority chairs, and has also spoken out against the language that was passed in the congressional in the CR, the continuing resolution last year. So folks are watching, I think, very closely about what goes on that, and whether or not there'll be an amendment that is offered.
Did you see the headline, the Marijuana Moment, that Kyle actually authored today about the police and anti-drug groups that were calling on the key congressional leaders to not extend the hemp ban? And do you think that there's going to be a state AG letter that potentially follows, as that's kind of what we've seen with like the cadence with these letters as it relates to anti-hemp or cannabis regulations?
Probably. So the state AGs have done a couple different letters on this, all around closing the loophole and getting rid of the synthetic THC products, as well as products that are that masquerade as hemp in the marketplace. So I think that they've weighed in on this. I think they've weighed in pretty heavily on this as well. So I think that to get an association letter going on the AG side also takes a lot of work.
Okay.
So I don't think that there would be a bipartisan. I don't think you're going to necessarily see a bipartisan letter. I don't rule out single AGs or a group of AGs or something like that. Potentially having that discussion. But I would just say from around Congress, there are a lot of people who really don't want to vote on this issue. They're not interested in it. They do not want to see an extension. Mostly, I think also, what you're hearing with folks and finding out that, the amendment itself is not germane, and that likely the amendment would be withdrawn. At least we think that.
Well, wouldn't that just be
it is?
If there's an extension, aren't we just back to square one?
Well, I think that's what people in Congress know, right? If they're voting for an extension, they know they're voting for basically free reign of what's going on right now. And some people are saying, well, vote for the extension to get to regulation, but there hasn't really been broad-based regulation that Congress is upon right now.
Do you think something could have gotten implemented if there was language to regulate and extend versus language just to extend and then the promise of regulation after the fact?
I think the problem is that fundamentally, instead of groups pushing for regulation, they pushed for an extension because they couldn't really get to what regulation would look like. I think that after this committee markup, depending on the way that goes, people are going to need to reevaluate the work that they're doing on this as well, because I think that the thing is that the industry is split in a lot of different but important directions.
Mhm.
And the folks who are probably the folks who are most problematic in the marketplace are the ones who are pushing the hardest for an extension without discussing what regulation is getting
Yeah,
in.
we've
And the
seen
other thing is it's a distraction, quite frankly. It's a distraction. The more that anybody's talking about an extension, the less likely you are to get a regulatory bill through, because people are going to have to fight the fact that they want an extension with no rules. So it can't just be a perfunctory excuse. And I don't think that there's
Right.
really no will from a congressional standpoint. I think that there could be there could be there could be more will around this, but there certainly is not right now.
Yeah.
Do
Well,
you think that the actual language in the Farm Bill does get amended this time around, not just the proposed language to extend gets jettisoned out, but they actually address the language in the Farm Bill as it relates to industrial hemp?
They could address a couple areas of industrial hemp during the mark, but we don't know that that's the case. That is going to happen, and amendments, amendments are still being filed. At this point to the bill. I mean, in fact, there was another amendment that was filed by Rep. Baird for a 2-year extension as opposed to just the 1 year that he was putting in. I think that one was kind of a compromise, but they filed for, he filed the 2 year, which we ultimately think will probably get withdrawn. So I think that there's it could be voted on, it could be withdrawn. I mean, we'll see. But if it's not germane, then it's unlikely that it's going to be voted on.
Okay, so last week it was clear that the amendment to delay the hemp THC ban probably won't even get a vote, which to me shows a strong signal that lawmakers are serious about tightening this definition. Seeing some comments here and saying, could we get a carve out with beverages? I don't want to speculate. That could very well happen. Do you think that's realistic?
Let's talk about a carve out on beverages, because I think beverage is a category that a lot of people have talked about here. And I think that there are a lot of things that are exciting about the beverage market. The issue that beverage has right now is that it's too tied to what's gone on with what's gone on to the rest of the Farm Bill. So it's hard to discuss where being able to specifically get what people are calling a beverage carve out, because it's very tough. Like, the thing about that is that there's multi-committee jurisdiction. Yeah. Like when you look at it at the state level and you see what's going on, and there have been some states that have passed laws that are just beverage focused on it because they're okay with just having beverages, but they're not okay with the other products that are on it. Well, the problem at the federal level is that you have to deal with the Controlled Substances Act. You have to deal with the other parts of the definition of hemp. And then you have to deal with the regulatory package that would be put in place in order to be able to do it. And then, of course, you also have to have a tax on it. So it would have to go from you want this to go to TTB, right? Like, that's what you want. You want all marijuana to eventually be legalized and go under TTB. Well, to get under TTB, you actually need to have a tax that's levied on something to be able to do it, which means that you would actually have to go through another subcommittee to be able to get that. So, like, in the abstract, like, one of the things that I hear about all the time is people talk about in the abstract of policy that makes sense, but then they don't actually know the roadmap to get that policy done in Congress. Okay. And the reality is that when you look at when you look at a lot of policy that impacts a lot of different stuff, one of the things that you have to understand is that the pathway through Congress is also the politics too.
Yes.
So it's actually
where we always fail.
It goes through, right? It's actually how something goes through that does it. So I think that I think there are a lot of things that we want to see, but again, I think that we have to live in the real world with what the expectation is that you could do. The other thing is that you basically would have to
well, this has got to come into play with this pilot program is where I'm trying to get this, right? This completely.
No, it's all that's different. I mean, that's
this is the Farm Bill, but isn't there certain language in there that'll help No, am I not understanding that correctly?
There's not language currently right now on it. I think that there's been some discussions, and some of the discussions around that have focused really just having that program, having that program siloed. So, like for example, I don't think that you're going to see, as much as I would like to see this policy, I don't think that you're going to see, the government buying beverages and subsidizing them for Medicare or something like that.
No, but what you can see and what we've spoken about with Kyle and with Mark is the possibility for someone like Glasshouse to turn on one of those massive greenhouses and just do CBD dominant flower that then gets extracted when people make the argument that there's going to be a massive CBD shortfall from the farmers getting torpedoed by this in Kentucky and across the nation. State-run cannabis businesses can allocate grow capacity to CBD dominant flower that will take up that market and be able to supply that market. So that's really something that's very feasible with the engine that's already been built. I'm sure there's plenty of assets in Oregon and Washington too that can grow biomass that are licensed by the state, that are not renegade operations, that can supply what's needed for that pilot program.
I'm just trying to understand like how you organize this entire cannabinoid space under one framework is where I was going with that earlier.
I think there's something important to note here too in this debate is that what we also heard, I think from the chairman, but what we've heard all throughout this is that really people want to talk about cannabinoid regulation, not through the agriculture committee. They want to do it at ENC. Okay. Yeah. They don't feel like now they're like, look, we're talking about, when we talk about agriculture, we're talking about industrial use. We're not talking about finished product.
Correct.
That's not what this committee does. They don't do finished product. And that was part of the problem that happened around the 2018 Farm Bill, where they conformed, a loose definition. People produced products, but those products were never regulated. And the question is, hey, like were they legal to begin with in the first place? I think is a large question.
Yeah.
Right. But nobody seemed to care about that question. Everybody, like the market went well beyond whether that question was right or wrong. Right. People didn't ask they just sort of did it. And then I think that people didn't really think that Congress would act to close the loophole. And I think
for people that are looking at this that aren't lawyers, they're not politicians, they're kind of more so looking at this from a cannabis point of view.
Mm-hmm.
How should they be looking at, we have a potential ban on the federal level, but we are seeing states enact policy to, let's say, keep these products legal and or allow them in a regulated capacity to exist in these states. If these states do enact those regulations, are they superseded by the federal ban that will take place in November?
I think that the way that you have to look at it is that you have to really have cannabis legalization, or you could have a separate hemp program in states, but you couldn't ship it across state lines. It would function
Correct.
Like
so you have siloed markets again, like we do with the MSOs.
Right. That's what you would have. So you couldn't functionally ship across state lines, of course, unless it's under the threshold of what the definition of hemp is, which is.
Got it.
Well, that's just it. What's considered legal in these state programs now?
That's actually a pretty good point, because you would have to have the brands that are the THC beverages be siloed in these states and fragmented markets, like what we're seeing with the MSOs right now, which they currently are operating from a centralized location, just shipping product everywhere in the United States, aligning with alcohol distributors. So their business model would get turned on its head, but they still could technically exist under the state regulations. However, will be only under the purview within that state.
That's essentially what would happen until federal. Definitional change happens. Okay. And the federal definitional change that happens would be legalization of. Yeah. Would be legalization of marijuana products at that point.
Well, hey, let's bring that on, right?
That's what I think look, I think that the conversation that we're seeing is much closer. with how
You
we're
do.
talking about these things. I do, because the reality is that there is what I think people in Congress want to see is they want to see regulatory guardrails around it.
Yeah.
And they do view the market as a 1.0 market. Okay. And I think that the thing is that there are a lot of folks who built sort of these synthetic THC businesses and the THCA flower businesses, which Congress really felt was running well ahead of where the law was. And then, I think the reality is that, like, all of us know here, and I think there's a good point that, is made in the chat, like THCA flower, you light it, what happens to it, right?
THC.
It's THC, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Marijuana. So I think that we need to get away from this idea that, I think that there was sort of a fiction that was going on in the market. We need to be regulating by final product. And also, I think we also need to be upfront with folks about what it is that our intentions are and what it is that we're trying to do. It is okay to sell an intoxicating product, an intoxicating THC product. What is not okay to do is it's not okay to subvert the law and create confusion around that, because otherwise we're going to be in regulatory whack-a-mole forever. And I think that's sort of I think that's kind of some of the things that we're witnessing here.
And the people in the chat, I mean, we're not demonizing THCA flower. THCA flower is pretty much the same as cannabis that you get at the state-run level. The problem with THCA flower is the way that it's regulated, which it isn't. There is no tracking. There's no state-level regulations. There's inverted product that comes from the illicit market. There's probably inverted product that comes from the legal market. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that probably doesn't happen, because it probably does in certain instances. The problem with THCA flower is it is a legal cannabis market that's just operating like the Wild West, which creates a problem and a public safety issue for the others that are participating in the licensed industry, which is the problem with it.
And it's not hard to figure this out, because you can compare it to alcohol. You go to a store. I'm just saying, like, you have alcohol that's federally legalized. You go into a store, you have brands, you have a regulated market. People trust what they're buying. Cannabis is pretty damn simple if we can just make it simple, but that all comes from laws and definition.
Cannabis is very
Washington.
The cannabis is very simple, and I mean, I've been on the record on this show many times. Open it up, give everyone licenses, let people craft grow, let people have micro grows, let people grow their own cannabis, and then also let the big boys do as they will.
Yeah.
Create dispensaries, drive interstate commerce, bring the walls down, and create a free market. The consumer will be better, the business will be stronger, and the illicit market will get stamped out. But until we get there, it's going to be just this bickering back and forth. The consumer is not going to be the focal point that's getting the benefit of this. And I mean, it's going to continue to just be a fragmented mess.
Yeah. All right, Michael. Yeah. So for this, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, look, I think that's right. And the thing is, broadly, all right, you clean this up and you move to better policy federally. Like, that's what you have to do. Like, that's literally what you have to do. That's the option that that's the option that that's the option that you're left with here. But the reality is that a lot of people, were skirting the system, and that's sort of what we've seen. That is kind of what we've seen part and parcel. And Congress didn't, Congress acted. And I think that the thing is right now is we could talk about what regulation looks like, what regulation should look like at the federal level. Correct. And we should go out there and get it. I take heart in the fact that there are a lot of people that are talking right now that they understand that with what has gone on the hemp side, that there should be federal legalization.
There should be. I think the hemp industry
legalization.
I think the hemp industry has done great things for cannabis. The hemp industry has helped normalize THC in this country. The problem is when I go buy a bottle of alcohol, it is the exact same product every single time that it says on the label, from a strength perspective, from a purity perspective, and from a testing perspective. You go into these smoke shops and people have done it. They test the flower. It's got mycotoxins, mold, mildew, and whatever. You go test the edibles. They're not the strength it says on the package. You go test beverages. They're not the milligram strength it says on the package. There needs to be trust in the system for us to legalize cannabis and for the consumer to benefit and be safe. That's really what everybody wants, is congruency and a safe system with trust instilled in it.
Agreed.
But like I said, the hemp industry has done wonders for normalizing THC.
It's definitely
It just
brought
did it the wrong way.
pros or cons. It's definitely started a much broader conversation, and you take that, I think, as a win. And we start addressing the things that you're working on day to day, right, Michael?
And I'm not saying that, Brandon. There are, hold on, because he's comments a lot. So I mean, Brandon, I'm not saying that. There is bad product that you will find on the shelf in the licensed market. It's proven. People have seen it. Companies have gotten fined for it. I'm not saying that it doesn't slip through the cracks. But what I am saying is when you go into a regulated dispensary, there's a higher level of trust and standards with 99% of the products that are on the shelf.
Yeah.
That is an efficient market, and that is a regulated market. But there are bad actors. It's inevitable, and we deal with it.
I think that's the problem with both.
I think we shouldn't undermine the regulated market. I mean, I think that's one of the things here too, because remember, it stands on principle. A lot of these state laws were passed. We changed constitutional laws in some cases in some of these states to do that. Okay. And then the thing is like, okay, well, now, you have this product that's out there. It's not licensed, right? It's sold basically where anybody wants it to be sold. It's like, well, what's the point of, like, what is the point of having legal, semi-legal, not legal? Like, if you can't tell what the product is or where it's coming from or what it is, then what have we really set up a market? Like, we haven't really set up a market if that's the case. Like, there shouldn't really be a discussion about whether, legalization always includes regulation. The problem is that when you get really down to it, a lot of the folks, this fight that was going on, and I think that there are a lot of folks who, they made a bet. Okay. And the bet used to be when there were a lot of folks that when they came in and they first talked about it, they would say, all right, there's a lot of sunk cost fallacy in what's going on in the regulated market. It's actually the opposite. Right now, what we're seeing is sunk cost fallacy being happening on the hemp side of the equation because of how much folks did. And they didn't really get to a spot where all of a sudden they turned around and they're like, we're okay, now we can regulate. I think all the conversation around regulation, until we actually address the bad actors, okay, because we shouldn't really, let's forget talking about regulated, unregulated, state license versus not state license. I think really that there's a conversation here that needs to be happening, right? You heard somebody talk about, testing and this, that, and the other thing. Yeah. Really what we're talking about is good actors and we're talking about bad actors.
Correct.
Okay. And the thing is that when alcohol got cleaned up coming out of prohibition, basically what people did was they got rid of the bad actors. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you actually have to, in this spot, have an idea of what a good actor is and where people who are not meeting the market where it needs to be are. And there have to be standards developed around that. And you have to build at a federal level. So like, I think that quite frankly, a lot of things have already changed and the argument has moved. Right. Yeah. And I think that folks here are still having the argument, but Congress acted. It actually is federal law right now. It's just when the enactment date is going to come. So the question now is not what happened in the past. All right. What happened in the past happened in the past. Correct. Okay. It's now what we have to do in order to move forward.
Agreed.
What did hemp prove? Hemp proved velocity of the market. It proved beverages are an incredible product, which is something that not necessarily everybody believed.
Yeah.
When this thing started, right? It also showed where these beverages could be served outside of out of specific certain types of social settings and how they could be sold. And to be sure, a lot of this is going to continue at the state level. Like people talk about, this is a quote unquote ban, but like, where can't you get marijuana in the United States right now? I know it's tough, like in 10 or, you've got 10 or 12, there are a lot of states that it does make it hard, right, to get access in. Okay. The thing is that we need to move towards regulation. We want adults to be able to have access to this product. We don't have to lie about what this product is. All right.
Correct.
We have to stand in the truth of this industry and not sell a product that we're pretending is something else. And I think that that's the most important point.
Agreed.
Of how we get to
And I said that. I said the biggest opportunity is for Dan Patrick and what's the governor of Texas? His name's
Greg Abbott.
Greg Abbott. Dan Patrick and Greg Abbott should have taken the hemp industry and just flipped it on its head and activated an adult use cannabis industry for everybody that can participate and grandfather them in the state of Texas. It would have been efficient. It would have worked. And it would have created regulations for a multi-billion-dollar industry that was built on the back of just the Wild West. They look like they're going to overregulate, but the sky didn't fall with all of the hemp products that we're seeing. Look at North Carolina, look at South Carolina, look at Texas. I mean, Florida, we're fighting for adult use here. There's adult use cannabis in the state of Florida. It's called hemp. You go to Sunburn in Fort Lauderdale, there's a hemp dispensary or literally across the street that sells every single product that they sell within the walls of that Sunburn dispensary, unencumbered and unbothered by the government, and it didn't cost them millions of dollars to have the license to do it. It's not that I'm against that. It's just the hypocrisy to allow that while you're treating the other business like this.
I mean, should people be able to sell alcohol at an unlicensed bar?
No.
Store that doesn't
you can't.
Have
we can't go start.
Right, you can't. Right, you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
So
you
know what would happen if we
create a
started
licensing system?
Yeah.
Right?
If we started a restaurant tomorrow, opened it, and just said, "Fuck it, we're going to put a bar in the corner, load it up with alcohol, and just start serving drinks," we would get shut down because there are rules.
So we have these common sense questions every single week. The stigma around this space has been going on for decades. And I even see like some of the stuff that was going on, as we said a couple of weeks ago or last week, Anthony, on Fox News and how they were talking about cannabis. And I'm sitting there.
But
these are professional broadcasters. They know how to do their proper research. They're obviously got a narrative that they want to basically own and portray and bullshit about every single time this, category gets brought up. So how do you get past this?
But they're talking about the fact of the matter is, if you cross-reference most of those conversations and most of the studies, they're looking at synthetic THC products that are inherent to the hemp market. If you go look at the gas stations and look at the products that these companies are making from a synthetic perspective, they keep evolving. There's HHC, THCP, THC0. I saw like 9-diethylene or something that's now in like a triple action vape that guarantees to keep you high all day. These products do not have a place in society. These products don't have a place in a regulated market. These products are a function of keeping cannabis illegal. That's the only reason they exist.
And my point, Michael, is that you have an on-air broadcaster that's probably surrounded by 4 or 5 producers before they go on air.
Fox News, they don't care.
How hard is it for 4 or 5 people to obviously go out, do their due diligence, and understand the difference between the two as to what Anthony's been saying? That's my point, is that
nobody is. I mean, that's why we saw the the New York Times editorial that we did. That's the problem. Okay, the problem is that people are not making the distinction, and if we don't make the distinction, no one's going to make the distinction.
Correct.
Okay, and the consumer is left confused because there are all these products that are coming out there. They think that they're like, they think that the product that's on the market is legal just because they see it where it's being sold.
Yeah.
All right, and the problem that we have is we don't know what are in these synthetic derivative products, and every time we go and test them, all right, we know that there's all types of other stuff that's in them. All right, someone's going to look back at this someday and go, "What were you doing?"
Yeah.
Okay. Remember when tobacco, right? People the big thing about tobacco was that they lied that it was addictive. Okay, that was like the big thing. They knew it. They were doing research. They did whatever. Right? We don't know what's going on with synthetic THC derivative products.
No.
Okay. We know that we can control for them. We know that there are certain things that we can do. All right. But the reality is that we don't know what we don't know. We know with at least a natural cannabis flower product, all right, that has been used over thousands of years. And while it's not, as safe as Boston lettuce, it's also not the devil's lettuce, right?
Correct.
So, like, I think that the thing is that we have to look from a public health and safety perspective what's going on. That's the key And that is the coin of the realm to be able to get legalization. Look at what the alcohol industry has a problem with in terms of the marijuana industry. Look at the letter that they sent to Congress. I think it's advisable that anybody look at that.
Yeah.
You know, because they said this stuff, we're not going to be for this right now because it's not being regulated the right way at the federal level.
Correct.
That's what they said. And why did they say that? Okay, some people say, well, there's some competitive landscape and this, that, and the other thing. But you know what they were able to do when they said that? The thing that us as an industry were able to give them, the bad actors in the industry that were able to give them, by speaking out against those products, it reaffirmed the fact that they're regulated. Mm-hmm. Okay, it actually was a self-affirming moment to that industry, to where if they didn't call it out, they would look hypocritical as to what it was that they were what it was that they were selling. That's how bad these things got.
Yep.
Michael,
we're lucky we haven't. I mean, I've been in this industry long enough to live through the vitamin E acetate bullshit that went on in the vapes. We're lucky that hasn't popped up again in the synthetic vapes that you're seeing in hemp. Because I mean, we had Adam Terry on, who's a chemical engineer, and he was like, most of the stuff when you're chemically converting, there's free radicals, there's heavy metals, there's things that find their way into these vapes that are not tested, and they're nasty things that can have adverse effects on consumers.
Mike, I know it's a broad question. I want to paint the whole audience with the same brush, but how much do you think baby boomers are still the result of where we are today when it comes to cannabis?
I like to think baby boomers are a large part of the problem with most everything that goes on in our lives, because it's just very easy to blame. No, I don't have I think that there is an age element to this. There's an age element to this. I mean, when I talk to, I'll talk to folks who are older.
There's a lot of people supportive, but I find the people that are against it also belong in that generation.
Yeah, but the funny thing now is all these baby boomers have friends that are using medical marijuana.
I get that.
But are using THC products.
The opposition, meaning like the people that don't want cannabis reform, most of it still comes from that boomer generation, does it not?
It's hard though. Look at what they were taught, and most of the people who are for it were part more of counterculture back then, because of what it was that was cool. It's very interesting because we talk about like the hemp cannabis stuff, and I've been an advocate for the hemp industry for quite a long time, and I just don't see from some of the products that are in the marketplace. I think we have to call it like we see it. This new generation. And we look at baby boomers. I think that you had to fit sort of a certain cultural era and a certain cultural time. Maybe had tried the product, had some level of familiarity with it. But here's the thing that people were taught as boomers, and even in some of the subsequent generations, it's very hard to erase the thought. They just know it. They know it to their bones. I've talked to people about it, and things have changed over time, but there are still people out there who are like, I heard one person say this to me like last week. They're like, I've seen what marijuana like does to people. Like I grew up around this, and I know what do you even mean by that? Yeah, right? Like, so, and that's a much older generation thing. I'll put it this way. There is no one who's in the younger generation that finds this very controversial.
At all.
Actuarially, we're going to get legalization because the generation that is in front of us that is not, and remember, baby boomers hold on to a lot of the wealth. They hold on to a lot of the power in the country. Look at how many presidents there have been that have been baby boomers, but not from other generations at this point. That dam will break. Yeah. Okay. Because it has to. Nobody's going to live forever. I don't care how much AI is coming through. I don't care how many longevity experts there are. This is a battle of attrition to some extent. And it's one that folks know that they're going to lose. And I'll tell you this, right? The same person who said to me that they're a baby boomer, and they said to me last week that they're not for this, the next sentence they said is, you know what? But I know that it's going to be legal at some day.
Yeah, they've come to the point that it's going to happen. They can't stop it. It's happening whether they want it or not.
Last wall of defense are.
This is a joke. I mean, it's like a joke.
The last wall of defense are the policymakers in Washington, which is why, like Washington, like you are.
Some of them are even older than baby. Actually, I don't know if they're older than baby boomers, but they're octogenarians. The ones that are really just the ones that are sitting there just.
I look at it, and I know I'm getting some little bit of flack here. Johnny writes, most of my patients are seniors here in Florida. I get it.
It is true. If you look at the
not everyone. It's not everyone. It's not patients. We're talking
medical patients.
Of
medical patients do skew older, especially in Florida.
I do think that, yeah, when you look at the
also, he
program,
threw me a softball with boomers. Like, what do you think I'm going to do?
Yeah.
You think I'm not going to swing at that question?
Yeah, I know.
And who do you think is going to be spending their $500 Medicare stipend?
Of course, that's going to benefit seniors, and there's lots of support among seniors.
It's all going to be okay. It's all going to be okay.
There's tons of support from seniors. I get it, but there's also a big audience of seniors that are still against it. And the number one example,
guys, we're going forward. We're going forward. We're going to get regulation. Okay, this discussion around hemp is an important discussion to have. It's super important. All right, but it's going to lead to regulation. It's going to lead to legalization. This right now, we have to take it for what it is. There's going to be fits and starts to how this market goes. And in order to gain federal acceptance, all right, we're going to have to lead on that. All right, we're not absolved by that. Just because, just because there are folks that are out there that are against it, just because there are folks that are doing what they're doing. All right, it's on all of us to make that change. We are going to make that change. There really is no going back on this, in my view. And I think that this is just the problem that we have here is that people, when we talk about the Farm Bill, they went too far. All right, we needed regulation. We needed FDA to act. Yeah. The industry will say, well, we begged for regulation. The one thing that we did not do well enough of was getting bad actors out of what they were doing and calling that out. And that's something that we're effectively, I think, doing right now, and what Congress is giving the opportunity to do. Because what we're doing is we're not trying to figure out what it is that, what it is that the difference is between the hemp and the cannabis community. We're trying to regulate THC as THC. All right. The thing that we need to do here is we need to clean this up so that we can get to federal legalization. And we are all committed to doing that.
That's interesting. So you think redefining hemp actually increases pressure for broader federal cannabis reform is what you think?
It has to. Look at the conversation that's going on right now. Look at the conversation that's going on right now. Okay, and by the way, none of these things, I don't think any of these things, people are saying, well, these things are inconsistent. None of these things are inconsistent. Okay, the EO is not inconsistent with what's the discussion in Congress. States legalizing right now, and how many people are under a legalization state is not inconsistent with what people are saying. What Congress is telling you right now is they want regulation. All right. The only thing that they were able to do in terms of it right now was change definition. All right. And there are a lot of folks who want to work on regulation. Now listen to the people who are fighting the hardest also on some of the hemp stuff. All of them now are calling for legalization. Every one of them. All right. And that changes. We have powerful Republican voices who are saying, okay, we need legalization. We have people who are moving it right through. I'll throw something else on there too. There hasn't been a state that it has not happened in this country where people went straight to adult use without having some level of medical law passage or medical treatment on this. All right. Well, with what President Trump announced in his EO, we're moving much closer to that situation than further away from that situation. Yeah. We are going to be in that situation. And what happens after that situation? Every time legalization. Every time.
The generation before the baby boomer generation, just in case you guys want to know, as we know, was the silent generation, born roughly between 1928 and 1945. It came of age. I
honestly could use more people keeping their mouths shut at this point. Yeah. Another silent generation would not be the worst thing for this debate.
Yeah, and I've said it before. I mean, and I'll say it again. It doesn't matter if you like cannabis or not. What matters is you can't tell somebody else that they don't have the right to use it.
Good point.
In this country in 2026. I don't care if you like it. It doesn't matter. I don't like a lot of things, but I don't tell people that they can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually a dumb question. Like, are you for or against cannabis? It's stupid. It's irrelevant. Right?
That generation were known as more being as cautious and institution focused compared to later generations.
I mean, they went through World War II, so.
Yeah, good point. It's amazing what 100 years does, but in some ways, well, I'm not going to get into that conversation, but there's some similarities as to what's going on in our world right now from 100 years ago, but we won't get involved in that.
So don't even go there.
Not even going there. But I think to your point, Anthony, if you disagree, fine, but don't tell me what I can and can't do, which I get.
I like how it said the founding fathers could drink me under the table. I wonder if the founding fathers had cannabis beverages. I would say that they probably should have.
Didn't George Washington?
I would bet you that a lot of them did smoke cannabis.
Didn't George Washington grow cannabis? I thought he did.
He grew hemp.
He grew apples.
Yeah. What's the status on the Shadlock 2026 T-shirts? The Shadlock.
They're in production. Is what they are.
Ed Blunt wrote just another dumbass comment made by Shad. So appreciate the
You're
feedback.
insulting the baby boomers.
Yeah, he's probably a look. I think your point, you're in Florida as well. I see it. There's lots of seniors that feel the medical.
The baby boomer demographic in the cannabis industry is enormous.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet it's a third, if not more.
When I'm talking about baby boomers, now this is great because I bring this up right at the end of the tail end of our conversation. So, when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about it demographically and politically. I'm not talking about what the usage rate is amongst the population and whatever. I'm talking about where public opinion has to move.
You are correct, though. Shad is correct in his assumption that the politicians that are staunchly against cannabis are baby boomers. The TV hosts that are on Fox News that parade Alex Berenson around like their little puppet are predominantly baby boomers that are staunchly against cannabis.
Guys,
don't want to hear
the only people who are against cannabis legalization are elected officials. Everybody else seems to be for it.
Guys,
that's a problem.
I can tell you, having worked in mainstream media, I know the people that are behind the scenes that are controlling the program directors and what their ages are. It's 100% there. And that blanket statement gets fed out to us, which is why this stigma has been around forever. And as far as the age, Anthony, you and I know, Michael, you've definitely seen it. Take a trip up to Washington and walk through the Dirksen building, and you will see staffers that are 22 years old yelling into the senator's ear because they're 88 years old and can't hear anything. That's how dated some of these
conversation that we need age limits.
Yeah.
But that's
they're all for it. Usually the staff is for it.
It's wild to think what Mitch McConnell is still. Well, what is going on? Anyways, that's another topic. But this has been good. So this week will be a telling week, and I guess we'll look for a few things. Committee votes, revised language, leadership.
Watch this committee vote. Watch if there's extension language. Watch if there's any other language that gets introduced on this. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. All right. I heard rumors, talked to offices, things like that about what it is. Okay. Then remember, the Senate also has talked about doing a mark of its own bill. All right. This year as well, which is something that's come out within the bill hasn't come out, but they've said within the last week that they're watching what the House is doing as well. Not generally on hemp, but generally, on a bill, because they may get to a spot where they do a mark as well. If they do, we're going to wind up having a farm bill this year, and it'd be very interesting to see what could happen. I mean, I'm still of the opinion that we probably don't get to a farm bill this year, but again, I think that could change, and the negotiations around that topic are ongoing. But I'll just tell you this: I think that there is a lot of wrong reads around what's going on in Congress. I think that I have set the record here for a couple of years about what was going to happen on this side. You can play back the tape. It's there. Just click on that link down there, right? Watch what I've said over the last couple of years. See if I've been wrong on this issue on where it's gone.
Yeah. Well, number one thing you got to keep doing is keep telling what your message is time and time again, because in this day and age, people only want to hear what they want to hear, even when you're helpful. But listen, you're always helpful. And that's why you have the Insider's Edge presented by American Trade Association for Cannabis and Hemp. Michael, good to see you. We'll watch this closely, and we'll follow up with you next Monday on this, okay?
Looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you, sir. Have a good day. Okay. Take care. That was good. Great conversation. And Ed Blunt, I know. Look at the faces. Look, I hear you, my man. And I think there's a huge support. And I'm trying to understand your point, and I hope you understand my point too. And I'm always open to hearing information that helps me educate and learn new things. But there's a lot of great baby boomers out there that provide a lot of great support for this industry. And I'm not doubting that whatsoever. And hopefully more people can be like that. That's for sure. Also want to mention too that YOLO year to date right now is just under 10% performance. MJ is actually just below 13%. So YOLO is outperforming by over 300 basis points. 3-month YOLO is actually positive. MJ is negative. And for the year, YOLO is actually up 40.57%, while MJ is up 12.77%. Volume is basically double for YOLO versus MJ. So again, if you guys want to learn more, log on to advisorshares.com. Check out the YOLO ETF. Again, some of their biggest positions, including Village Farms, High Tide, and SNDL. And as I said before, it was the #1 performing cannabis ETF last year. And I know MSOS gets a lot of attention, but do not sleep on YOLO. Lolo has got some big positions in some of the big Canadian LPs that are doing some great work internationally as well. So again, check that out. And as well, if you're feeling out of focus, you want to stay focused, own your edge, stay informed, freepouch.com. I'm actually trying this watermelon 3 milligram, and I try it from time to time. It keeps me focused. So if you want to learn more, use the promo code TDR20 and save $20 on your first purchase order. Log on to freepouch.com. You see the logo banner ad right there. That's all the information. So feel free to do so. All right, sir. I guess we'll watch some of the committee hearings here towards the Farm Bill later this week. Hopefully,
we get some fireworks. Finding out that it's that the chairman saying it's non-germane is it's good.
Yeah.
The extension would just create a friggin' mess.
Well, like I said, I don't know how you do that. But again, I know I brought up the point about the pilot program, and those are two separate things. With regards to the Farm Bill, but aren't they going to really need to understand and define what hemp is to like really make that whole pilot program?
You don't need hemp is cannabis. The state-run businesses can grow cannabis.
Yeah.
That gets extracted down into CBD.
Yeah. Well,
they're not correlated. You don't need one for the other.
Okay, fair enough. Hopefully we get some sort of announcement too from Attorney General Pam Bondi, because I know that's a rolling date, perhaps April 15th. That's supposed to go live, but my guess is that they got to be looking to get something done relatively soon. So we shall see. And I know we're going to continue to get this conversation or question brought up to us every single day. What are you hearing? What are you hearing? And
nothing.
You think something in the Middle East is going to delay things? Like, come on, guys. As much as I want to stay, I'm connected. I'm not connected to the Department of War and what they're going to decide on a lot of this stuff, and the Attorney General. I guess we keep hearing that, something could happen relatively soon. So hopefully indeed that is the case. But in the meantime, that's it for now. Boris Jordan, perhaps Wednesday, Thursday this week. Do you know?
It's floating target. As soon as I speak to him and get a confirmation and it gets firmed up, we will let everybody know.
Okay. All right. That's it for now, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4:00. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey everyone, thanks again for watching here today. Listen, if you're getting value from us here at TDR, make sure to check us out at TDR Plus. It's our exclusive membership community. Why? Well, you'll see CEO interviews that go beyond business, showing a personal side that you won't find anywhere else, including the biggest names of the industry. Plus, you'll get insights from analysts and day traders on where the industry's headed, both short-term and long-term, and a direct chat group with our team. It's only $7 a month, just 25 cents a day, and it helps support everything we do here at TDR. If you want to join, just click the join button below and become a TDR Plus member today. And once again, a big thank you for being part of our community. So that's it for today. And again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.